Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I thought this was a 500-seat theater. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I am Julian Niels, and most of you are like, well, who is Julian Niels? Well, I am the business administrator for the city of Newark, and I'm just coming out to welcome you to this wonderful occasion. We are actually streaming live on Channel 78. We're streaming live on the web. So technically, anyone around the world could tune into what we're doing tonight. So the cameras will be panning around, getting great scenes of you. So for your friends in Australia, China, all those great places, you want to make sure that you're looking good for them. So we're really happy to have you here. First of all, I want to point out that we have signers this evening to help for those who are impaired. Our signers from CQ Fluency are Marianne Brown and also Aaron Rudner. Would you all help me in welcoming our governing body of the City of Newark, our municipal council members? Our municipal council members, our presiding officer, Aníbal Ramos of the North Ward. From the East Ward, Augusto Amador. From the South Ward, Ras Baraka. At-large member, Mildred Crump. At-large member, Carlos Gonzalez. At-large member, Louis Quintana. From the West Ward, Ronald Rice. And from the Central Ward, Darren Sharif, our municipal council. Now, would you all also help me in welcoming our department directors who toil tirelessly in the city of Newark? Also, our Deputy Mayor, Margarita Muniz. We have with us also Keith Kennard, the Executive Director of the Newark Housing Authority. If you'd also help me welcome our Police Director, our Police Chief, and members from our Newark Police Department. Now, before the invocation, we also just want to point out some of the elected officials and dignitaries we have here. Apologies in advance because there are so many of you, and I can only read from the list that I've been given, so I will dissuade responsibility for that. But we have our Representative Tom Giblin is here. Mr. Giblin. Our County Executive, Joe DiVincenzo. How are you, sir? Our Sheriff, Armando Fontoura. Our Chief of Detectives in the county, Anthony Ambrose. Senator Teresa Ruiz. Assemblywoman Grace Spencer. Assemblyman Albert Coutinho. Assemblyman Caputo is here also. Phil Elijah from Essex County, from the Director's Office. Our Mayor Joe Padullo from East Hanover. Where's our friends from East Hanover? Chairman Thigpen is here this evening. Chairman. And Chairman Vin Gopal is also with us this evening. Now, without further ado, I would call out Pastor Eric Fontañez from Iglesia Fuente de Vida, Fountain of Life Church, Newark, New Jersey, for our invocation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored and blessed to be here today on behalf of myself and Fountain of Life Church. I want to thank the City of Newark for this gracious invitation. I'm going to ask that you bow your heads with me as we commence this invocation prayer. Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability in allowing us to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us even so from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities since you have established those very authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I am asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, and joy in fulfilling their task. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Newark. Y como dice tu palabra en Salmo 127:1, si Jehová no edificare la casa, en vano trabajan los que la edifican. Si Jehová no guardare la ciudad, en vano vela la guardia. Therefore, we ask that you continue to build this city. May you give strength to those who edify it, and may you watch over this great brick city. And as a brick city, we are strong, resilient, and able to sustain the various storms that come our way. Newark has come a long way, God, but we still have work to do. Therefore, we declare that God has not forgotten about Newark, and Newark has not forgotten about God. May we together unite in our faith for the well-being of our people. This we pray and ask in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
I just point out our prosecutor, Carolyn Murray, has also joined us this evening. Thank you, prosecutor, for being here. Our friends, Tucker Development is here. Luther Reddy from Prudential is here. We'll be peppering this throughout the night, and hopefully we won't leave anyone out. If you would all join me now for the presentation of colors by the Newark Police Department Ceremonial Unit.
Detail. Present arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Order! Out! Ready! Step! Out, face! Out, face! Alert, out,
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now please, we have to give it up for our two young people who did the Pledge of Allegiance. Let me give you their names. That was Nicole Joanna, age 10, and Amir Julian Arnold, age 11. And for our national anthem, some homegrown talent from Arts High School. All right. That was Michael Barrow, Liebert Michelle, Noah Jacobs, and Deontay Savage. Now, without further ado, we're here to talk about the struggle it's been, the good times, the bad, what it has meant to be of service to the city of Newark, going out to all of those who are watching from our television audience, all of those who are Newarkers, and all of those who love Newarkers, and all of those who love Newark. I present to you now the mayor of the great city of Newark, the Honorable Mayor Cory A. Booker.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Julian introduced everybody but himself. Julian Niels, the business administrator of the city. I am really grateful to everybody who came tonight. I feel tonight really overwhelmed with a profound sense of gratitude, and I just want to thank everybody for coming to my 7th State of the City address. And I want to especially, after these 7 years, I want to especially thank everyone who loves the great city of Newark, New Jersey. You know, loving Newark doesn't mean that you're a passive cheerleader on the side just cheering and hoping things are going to go well. Actually, love means being in the game, and there are so many in the game. So many of our residents, so many people that work here, so many people that believe, from leaders in our high schools to senior citizens in our senior buildings, so many people are demonstrating that love means action. Love means assuming responsibility. Love means doing what is difficult, because love ain't easy. In fact, love is always the tougher road. And so many people have shown that love doesn't mean being a cynic or a naysayer. It doesn't mean being on the sidelines. It means being constructive, contributing, sacrificing for city, for community, sacrificing for each other. And so tonight, for those of you watching, this room is full of folks, and all across this city and even beyond, full of people who for the last 7 years, and even much longer before that, made the hard choice, when times were difficult, to stand up for Newark, to contribute to Newark, to fight for Newark, and to love our city every day and in every way. And it has been hard. We've had some tough days together. We've been through some storms that were brutal, both figurative, and we all know, literal as well. But let me give you an example, a little bit of what I'm talking about, of this love. You know, in the middle of Hurricane Sandy, a little after midnight, in the dark hours of early morning, when the power was out in over 90% of the city and the winds were still whipping through, I was out in an SUV with some police checking on neighborhoods, looking at what was going on, and then I got a call from our governor. He was checking in on me, seeing how I and the city was doing, and he and I talked. He was worried about possible spikes in crime because of the 90% blackout, but I knew our city. And I assured him that we would be okay and that we didn't need help from the state police, especially because I knew that those resources of his could be used in other areas of the state that were even harder hit. And interestingly, as I hung up the phone, it was amazing. Almost as if they timed it, I got another call. And this is a call I've gotten a lot of times, and it's perhaps a call that has the silliest question I've ever heard. And I hope you all agree with me. It was this operator who said, "Hello, this is the White House. Would you hold for the president?" Would I hold for the president? I'm sorry, I'm a little busy. No. I said, yes, I'll hold for the president. And the next voice I hear is President Barack Obama calling me to express his concern for the city of Newark. I told him that we were battered but pushing through. It was a time that the city council and so many others were pulling together despite any differences, standing in unity, and I began to tell him about those things. As our conversation wound down, I was ascending a hill in the West Ward and saw, in my last words with the president, this massive tree that had come down, tearing down power lines, blocking the street. And at that moment, as I hung up with the most powerful man in the world, I saw humanity's greatest power exhibited in one of its most humble men. There was this senior citizen with a rain slicker and a flashlight, standing in the middle of the street, standing guard in front of a downed, potentially live wire, so that none of his neighbors or cars traveling in that direction would be endangered. It was incredible. I pulled up on him, we talked, I told him how impressed I was with what he was doing, but I told him to go home, that I would stand guard in my car until authorities showed up. You see, I knew that the true strength of our city did not lay in a president in that storm. I knew it didn't lay in a governor. I definitely knew it didn't lay in a mayor. It lay in the love exhibited by this very man, love I saw all throughout our city during that crisis. It was a testimony to the truth of who we are in Newark. This is Brick City. And as I said time and time again, we are like bricks themselves. We are strong, we are resilient, we are enduring, and like those bricks that build bridges and mighty structures, when we come together, there is nothing we cannot do, create, or overcome. And fueled by this spirit, fueled by this love, and a sense that there's nothing we can overcome, 7 years ago, buoyed by so many residents, when I began as mayor, I made all of these bold proclamations of intent. A lot of the folks on the stage remember we put out bold vision statements. We said that Newark would set a national standard for change, for transformation. This was my vision, but frankly, this was Newark's vision. Folks in our city knew the potential, and they were tired of settling for anything less than bold change. And so, the path of progress we know is a rough road, especially when you're facing horrendous headwinds, like a global recession that shook the foundations of cities all over our state and nation. But you see, Newark, with our strength, with a bold vision, and the courageous commitment of thousands and thousands of people who love this city, we overcame. And tonight, I want to tell you all the story of the transformative change we have made. You see, remember when I entered office? Back in 2006, people were leaving Newark more than they were coming. Our population was declining. Businesses and those who dreamed of starting businesses in our city found little support from the city. And they were taking their jobs and innovations elsewhere. Remember also that in 2005 and 2006, violent crime was spiking and tearing at the fabric of our community. We were handed a budget with a startling $118 million budget gap, on track to grow to over $200 million. City operations were deeply dependent on tens of millions of dollars of non-reoccurring revenue that would quickly evaporate like water on a hot summer sidewalk. And with the recession, lines of support to all American cities, from the federal government and state governments, weakened, waned, or just went away. In my first weeks as mayor, I tell you, I was humbled by the difficult conditions many of our most dedicated employees were working under. I remember my very first day, the very first hours after I swore the oath, I went down to the South Ward and walked into the precinct there. When I walked in, I'm telling you, parts of it looked like an episode from Barney Miller, with our police wasting hours doing work on typewriters that belonged in the Smithsonian Museum. Instead of spending their time on the streets protecting residents, they were filling out forms on typewriters. Officers even had non-functioning bathrooms. Some of them were leaving the precinct just to use the facilities. Many committed officers were going in their own pockets, using their own money to buy tools, to jerry-rig and make makeshift fixes for police equipment. And I saw in the police department and the fire department, many of them, or officers, were using their money to buy computers to try to make their jobs easier and more efficient. I'll never forget the smell of that precinct. It smelled like urine, and the conditions even for the people that were arrested were abysmal, as I saw folks handcuffed to radiators. All over city government, supervisors, those in charge of managing the day-to-day operations, had very little access to critical management data. For example, we spent weeks, Bo Kemp, my first BA can tell you about this, we spent weeks in the beginning conducting manual desk audits just to nail down the exact number of city employees we had. We were sending millions of dollars offensively to the people of Newark. We were sending millions of dollars of critically needed grant money back to the federal government due to lack of compliance. And as was the case with the COPS grant, intended to put more police on our streets, we were banned from applying for future funds because of non-compliance. There was hardly a department or division that didn't have these loyal, hard-working employees with stories of profound dysfunction. So I'll never forget when our great then Corporation Council came in and told me that with roughly 4,000 employees, we had over 3,500 outstanding workman compensation claims, liabilities that could have further crippled our city financially. And so 7 years ago, joining with our directors, division heads, with frontline workers, a host of pro bono consultants, loaned executives from places like Prudential and others, I led our city in perhaps our least sexy, but most important endeavor of my time as mayor, the hand-to-hand combat of full-scale management turnaround. We recognized an understandable lack of confidence. One of the first things we saw was the lack of confidence in the integrity of government. You see, we took over and saw that this lack of integrity had real financial, operational, and social costs. And so, taking advice from a guy who I still refer to now as my big brother in government, our county executive, Joseph DiVincenzo. Joe, I have here pause for applause. This is where people should be applauding your name. I've taken all your advice, Joe. You haven't taken mine and shaved your head. What's up with that? So Joe gave me the advice, get an inspector general. And that's exactly what we did. With cooperation of the council, we created the office. And since then, this inspector general has secured 19 indictments of city employees who were stealing from our residents, all closing out with guilty pleas. We've handled over 150 additional cases administratively and have seen a significant decrease in reports leading to investigations. But in addition to establishing systems of accountability for those rare employees who seek to violate our city's ethical standards, we knew that we had to give our senior leadership and our day-to-day managers access to that critical management data. We needed to help them have the transparency of operations needed to make better management decisions, to be more accountable ultimately to the residents. So we created our own take. After sending people down to Baltimore, we created our own take on Baltimore's famed CityStat program and named it Brick CityStat. This management system represents a profound advancement in our ability to govern effectively here in Newark and entails the relentless collection, analysis, and implementation of management data. It's tied closely to our innovation of creating Newark's first central line for all city complaints, inquiries, and issues, our 4311 line. Brick CityStat now can track customer satisfaction like never before and better hold my managers accountable for serving our residents. So take, for example, last year, Brick CityStat has been digging in on issues where our residents have been pointing to most, complaining about most. Using data and greater discipline, improvements are being made across the city. In sanitation, for example, where we used to have rampant reports of missed pickups, in the last year alone, they have gone down dramatically, 58%. And we're continuing to focus on where our residents are talking about. And so everywhere we look, our improved management and accountability is actually saving money. We went from a city with out-of-control workman compensation claims to consistent across-the-board reductions in those expenses and the collateral benefit of making our workplaces safer. This year, the cost of workman comps claims has declined dramatically in our city. For example, neighborhood services, neighborhood and recreational services, it's down 74%. Engineering, down 80%. Child and family well-being, workman comps claims and the cost is down 88%. Also down is overtime in departments all over the city as schedules are better managed and the productivity of our workers go up and up and up. Again, for example, over the last 2 years alone, we reduced monthly overtime in sanitation 40.7%. In motors, it's down 53%. And police overtime, which was nearly $20 million in 2006, is down to $5 million now. Before our management turnaround, Newark was not only losing money needlessly in overtime costs and costly injuries on the job, but also we had a rampant problem of chronic employee absences all throughout our city. These absences were costing our city money and costing our residents in the poor delivery of services. Now, with systems in place to track absences, deal with chronic offenders, and measure the departmental improvements day after day, we've seen a dramatic turnaround. For example, in child and family well-being, where people do everything from provide immunizations to our kids to critical services for our seniors, absences are down 25%. In engineering, the folks who do everything from fix our traffic lights to prepare our roads, absences down 40%. In neighborhood and recreational services, where people do the vital work of cleaning our streets and tending to our parks, absences are down almost 50%. This has led to across-the-board spikes in productivity. Work is being done. It's being done more quickly, more efficiently, more effectively, and is being measured with greater discipline, transparency, and detail. So from the speed in filling potholes to the number of children we're immunizing, we have seen dramatic increases in the quality of service and the productivity of our employees. Here's a great example. In our Division of Code Enforcement, this past year alone, these hard-working employees who have had significant staff reductions have increased the number of inspections per inspector 98%. The hard work of our dedicated city employees, paired with Brick City Stat monitoring and oversight, has meant that from the buildings our residents live in to the restaurants our residents dine in, we are more quickly identifying and even preventing problems and ensuring citywide health and safety. These statistics are not sexy enough for headlines, but they represent a transformational change in city government, and we're getting better every day. These are everyday breakthroughs, everyday accomplishments, when added one to another, make our city stronger, safer, and more successful. You know, 7 years ago, though, we knew that we not only needed to transform management, literally implementing new systems of accountability, but that some of our agencies actually needed radical interventions. And we had to rebuild them literally almost from the ground up. The Newark Housing Authority was one such agency. The federal government was threatening to take our housing authority over. Many of you remember those headlines. The residents in public housing were facing unconscionable conditions, and our public housing facilities contributed to some of our most challenging health, crime, and family issues. As mayor, while this agency was under federal authority, I believed it was fully in my responsibility to see it turned around. So immediately after election, before I even swore my oath of office in this building, we led reform. Now look, I want to publicly apologize to perhaps one of the greatest Newark unsung heroes of my administration, and that's Newark Housing Authority Director Keith Kennard, standing behind me. He got mad when he showed up in Newark because everybody kept calling him Cory Booker. We thought he was going to be my stunt double. Well, look, I apologize to him because when we both started in 2006, in my very first meeting with him as mayor-elect, I raked that brother over the coals until I was confident in his leadership and satisfied that he and I had the same vision and determination to reform that agency, but also to make what we knew were going to be unpopular decisions necessary to do so. And then, in order to hold him accountable for better results and partner with him to implement that vision, I turned my focus to the Newark Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. And on that board, in a leadership position as chairman, I appointed, with the support, and I express my gratitude, of the City Council, another one of our city's unsung heroes, the chairman of the Housing Authority Board, my chief of staff, and somebody that's appallingly thin, Modia Butler. And so, listen to the story. Mo and the Housing Authority team, what did they do? Well, in 2006, only 90% of our apartments were leased. Well, now that number's up to 98%, and that actually means that small change from 90 to 98% means that hundreds of more residents have a roof over their head. Back then, that's worthy of applause. But it gets better. In 2006, only 70% of the rent was being collected. Now, 97% of the rent is being collected, which means that critical dollars are being reinvested in our housing authority to serve our residents. And listen to this, the average wait time for emergency repairs in 2006 was 6 days. Emergency repairs, this means burst pipes, exploding toilets, floods. The average wait was 6 days. Now the average time of the repairs is done in less than 24 hours. The conditions, absolutely. The conditions found prior to my arrival and the arrival of this administration earned the Newark Housing Authority a spot on the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's troubled list. Now we serve as a national model as Keith entertains delegations from around the country who come to Newark, New Jersey, to see what an example of a high-functioning housing authority is doing. And amazingly, all of these improvements came as we made painful decisions to cut staff dramatically. From 900 full-time employees in 2006 to 379 now. This was a difficult and unpopular transition, but the 58% reduction in staff has allowed us to invest in the housing authority, transforming projects, creating transformative projects like 980 centrally monitored public safety cameras protecting our residents, and the modernization of 24 low-income senior buildings, finally giving thousands of our residents, especially our elderly, housing facilities that better reflect their dignity. Because of this leadership, I just want one more time to ask both Keith Kennard and Modia Butler to stand up and get some thanks. Mo's over there. Keith, thank you. And like the NHA, another critical agency that we inherited that needed to be rebuilt from the ground up was our city employment office. There are few tasks more important in this economic climate than helping Newarkers prepare for, get, and keep employment. And at a time when Newarkers were struggling to find work, the principal agency responsible for placing Newarkers on the job was failing dramatically. In fact, it failed 50% of the state performance measures in program year 2005. That was unacceptable. So we acted forcefully, reducing staff, hiring new leadership, improving and streamlining operations, increasing corporate participation, and making meaningful appointments, incredible appointments, to the Workforce Investment Board. In the most recent program year, we have not only exceeded all of our state benchmarks, but I want to focus in on one in particular. Adult entered employment, meaning the people that actually got jobs. In 2005, that was a 57% placement rate in that program year. Today, it's 84%. They are doing a phenomenal job. And as Newark is beginning to boom economically, it is preparing our residents to seize the thousands of new jobs from our hotels to our port warehouses. I want to thank right now the team, the management team that's been doing a great job, and I just want them all to stand up. Arcilio Aponte, the director, Kathy Weaver, who's the chair of our Newark Workforce Investment Board, Melita Valentine, the executive director of the Newark Workforce Investment Board, and Norma Gonzalez. Where's Norma? Norma Gonzalez, our one-stop director. They have created a transformation. Now, similar to the crises and the Housing Authority and the One Stop, we took over another agency critical to our city's success, an agency that was also tainted by a corruption scandal and crippled by mismanagement. Our division of housing and real estate was in a shocking disarray, and tragically, when we walked in, we're suddenly reading letters that we're about to have to give back millions of dollars of home funds taken back by a federal government who said we weren't meeting our requirements for those grants. And so we, again, led a massive turnaround to save that money and make a change. We restructured the department. We hired new managers. We set up transparent systems of accountability and critical metrics. I personally, knowing the housing crisis, went out and fought for grants, lobbied in Washington, attracted philanthropy, and brought in new partners to help us build despite a housing crash. Now, after 7 years, again with reduced staff and reduced federal funding, and in a down economy caused by a housing crash, we have accomplished what some people said was absolutely impossible given these conditions. We have increased the rate of affordable housing production in this city by more than 100%. Over 1,600 more affordable housing units have been completed and are under the construction over the last 7 years, with another 400 homes in the pipeline. When these units are complete, that will mean that more than 5,000 Newark residents have found a new home amidst this housing crisis that we're in. And yes. And we focused the right way on housing for everyone, affirming my belief that all Newarkers, regardless of circumstance, should benefit from Newark's resurgence. And so with partnerships on the city council, especially these ward councilmen, we have completed housing for veterans and disabled veterans, the chronically homeless, people with developmental disabilities, victims of domestic violence, and Newarkers living with HIV and AIDS. And we're going to continue breaking ground at a breakneck pace, building more housing the right way, that reflects our values. Housing that's affordable, sustainable, mixed use, mixed income, and it will be built with Newark labor. I want to thank two of the people who have been responsible for leading this. I want to first thank Adam Zipkin, my Deputy Mayor of Economic Development. Adam, would you stand up? And I want to thank somebody else who labors in an office, who doesn't get out, who's not been a public face, but he is a genius when it comes to housing production. I would like to thank Mike Meyer as well, head of our housing department. Where's Mike? These are the kind of hard-won transformations that our city residents demanded and deserved. But even tougher management and oversight and a massive restructuring of authorities and agencies would not get us past a decades-in-the-making budget problem. If Newark was to succeed, the critical challenge we knew then was faced with this idea that we had to transform one of New Jersey's worst examples of budgetary failure to one of the most impressive examples of a strong fiscal turnaround. And so we know the story of where our budget problems came from, starting in the 90s. In fact, when I was on the council, our city began relying upon large amounts of non-reoccurring revenue, including Port Authority settlement payments that would end pushing Newark off of its own fiscal cliff. What made matters worse was that the Great Recession brought a massive decrease in taxable revenue and steep reductions in available federal and state aid. Faced with this unprecedented budget crisis, we have spent the last 7 years confronting painful options and stepping up and making smart yet difficult choices. This wasn't a time to be popular or political. It was a time to solve the budget crisis and lead our city into the long-term fiscal stability and even strength that we needed. And so we acted. Painful but necessary. We cut our municipal workforce by 25%. Painful but necessary. We cut our spending by 20%. Painful but necessary. We cut outside contracts and enacted strict spending discipline. And amazingly, because of all that cutting, of all of that discipline, of all of that management focus, amazingly now, the budget that we will present to the council this year will propose less total spending than when I took office 7 years ago in 2006. Even with massive and uncontrollable growth in pension costs, in healthcare costs, and energy costs, we are still spending less today than we were in 2006. And while we cut, we also brought efficiencies to revenue collection. In fact, we have improved our collection rate of our municipal taxes to the highest level in 2 decades. We have increased our payroll tax, our parking tax, and our hotel tax from $52 million in 2006 to $75 million today. And we are not only collecting better, but more importantly, we are also growing our tax base. Ladies and gentlemen, Newark has actually turned the tide. A massive change, a transformation has happened. The decades-long trend of more people and businesses leaving than coming is over. Now, our population is growing for the first time in 60 years, and businesses and development are coming to our city at a pace not seen in generations, with each project helping to employ more and more Newarkers and expanding our tax base. For example, I'm happy to see my dear friend Mr. Tucker sitting in the front row. When he came in, and in our partnership, when we built a new hotel, we increased the amount of hotel tax, payroll tax, parking tax, and property tax that we collected. And on top of that, he gave some philanthropy to the city as well. A project like that is incredible for expanding our tax base. And I'm proud to announce that when we add up all of the hard work and sacrifice, when you tally the sum of 7 years of painstaking attention to management detail after management detail, that this year, Newark, New Jersey is making budget history. This year, we announce a true transformation. In 2013, Newark will break through, and we as a municipal government will not have to apply for emergency state aid, for distressed city state aid, or for transitional aid. We are done, and done. And further, we are not, please applaud that. And further, we're not going to have to rely on one-timers from the Port Authority. We are not going to rely on creative gimmicks that kick the problem down the road or rob Peter to pay Paul. In fact, we have taken our city from at one point being reliant at a shockingly high 20% of one-timers, 20% of quick gimmicks and one-time fixes from a budget back in 2005 and 2006, to this year taking that number almost down to the floor, that we are now relying only on 4% of our budget for one-time sources of income. After years dating back to the 90s, I am proud to stand here as mayor of the largest city in New Jersey and declare this to be Newark's year of budgetary independence. Our budget is now strong. Our budget is now balanced. And our revenues are growing and our tax base is increasing thanks to our discipline, furious frugality, and innovative management. We now have the ability, after all the cutting, to invest again in our critical priorities, like our kids, our families, like our public safety. This has been a leadership example, and I want to thank every single leader on our team who helped over the 7 years to take us from distressed crisis to blessed abundance. I want to particularly thank a few people who should be taking a bow for their hard work. I first want to thank Julian Niels one more time. He has been an incredible BA. Julian, would you stand up, please? But I also want to thank another group of people. Everybody likes to celebrate our divisions, but the truth of the matter is, when it comes to solving crises in our city, we've been unified. No city government in decades was dealt the budgetary hand of cards that we were dealt. As I said before, there were no good decisions. And so I want to thank right now each and every one of them, those people who are principally responsible to oversee the budget and the budget process. And that is the extraordinary leadership of the Newark Municipal Council. Would they please stand up? Would you please stand up? And so this is what makes me proud tonight. Our fiscal discipline and addressing our budget crisis head on means that this year, starting this year, and we project for the next 5 years, we can reinvest and hire year after year, new class after new class in our police department. Look, in New Jersey, dozens and dozens of cities and towns have laid off and reduced their numbers of police officers. I'm proud that we can actually reverse that trend. We can rehire. But before I give those details, I want to be very clear with everyone in our community. Crime is a symptom of a problem. It is not the problem itself. More police can and will reduce crime, but ultimately, we cannot arrest our way out of this problem. We must educate our way out of it. This is why we have pushed so hard for new and improved schools all over the city. This is why we have worked so hard with Teachers Union President Joe Del Grasso, Superintendent Cammie Anderson, others, to get the most advanced teachers contract in our country right here in Newark, New Jersey. This is why I went out and raised the money to expand charter schools here in Newark, to extend school days for our Newark public schools, and support a teacher innovation fund for all of Newark's public school teachers. This is why we work so hard to bring a program like My Very Own Library that will, by the end of this year, listen to this, put hundreds of thousands of books into the new home libraries of nearly half of our district grade school youth. You want to fight crime? Read to a child. You want to fight crime? You want to fight crime? Support your local public school. You want to fight crime? Volunteer at an after-school program, because we cannot arrest our way out of this problem. We must work our way out of it with growing job opportunities for our residents. This is why we have worked so hard to usher in this period of unprecedented economic growth in our city. This is why we have fought so hard to create apprenticeship programs in partnership with the unions in our city, getting hundreds of our youth into careers in construction. This is why we are the first administration to enforce the first source hiring provisions, to ensure that companies that build and grow here also hire our residents for the new jobs created. This is why we continue to expand job opportunities for ex-offenders. We can't turn our backs on them. And I'm proud that, in fact, this is the first year, for the first 1,000 Newark residents who have gone through our city's reentry program. We have cut the recidivism rate for those people by 40%. When it comes to crime, we cannot arrest our way out of the problem. We must love our way out. This is why I've raised millions of dollars for mentoring programs in our city. If you want to lower crime, don't talk about it, mentor a child. This is why we created the state's first youth court, because just throwing kids in jail doesn't solve the problem, it makes it worse. This is why we created our fatherhood program and the Grandparent Support Center and Family Success Centers to support parents and grandparents who are the primary caregivers for our kids. Because if you want to stop crime in Newark, we must get back to understanding that the most important unit in fighting crime is not a police unit, it is the family unit. And we can't just say that. We must be that. We must support that. We must work for that and fight for that. So yes, I announced tonight that we will hire more police. It's been a good few years, but not good enough. We've seen a 27% decline in shootings since 2006, a 26% decline in auto theft since 2006, a 17% decline in murder since 2006. But I'll tell you what, stop any Newarker. This is not enough. And so I'm confident that by adding more police officers, by working with the community, we can, we must, and we will do so much better. And so today I'm announcing that we will begin our year-by-year hiring increase by hiring more than 50 officers. We're going to push it as far as the council and the budget will allow us, and as quickly as Director DeMaio can identify candidates and train them. And in 2014, on the remainder of my watch, we will hire even more. And when my term comes to a close, we will leave the next administration with a financial trajectory to add hundreds of more police every year over the next 4 years. And very importantly, we will double down on our efforts to improve police-community relations and crack down on those few officers, those few bad officers who tarnish the good names of the many. I want to commend Police Director Sammy DeMaio and Police Chief Sheila Coley. Not only did they help to lead us through 2012 with overall crime down yet again, but they were doing it with fewer officers than their predecessors had. And where they really stepped up, in my opinion, was on issues of police accountability. What a dramatic change they made in 2012. New processes have been established by their leadership to investigate police demeanor, and there is an increase in sustained complaints against police. Surprise, surprise. The improvements have been made also in police oversight and training. But I'll tell you, if you talk to Police Director DeMaio and Chief Coley, they know that there is still so much more work to do on police accountability. Our department must and will do more to gain the trust of the community. Yes. So it's my hope that the Federal Department of Justice will soon come into Newark and assist us in developing even greater capacity to raise the level of police conduct. Their support and oversight can be invaluable in helping us to modernize our police accountability systems. But for now, I'm not going to wait for the DOJ. We will continue the progress made by our police leadership by pressing forward with reforms and accountability of officers. To this extent, I recently asked the Municipal Council's presiding officer, Anibal Ramos, to have the City Council join with me to study and form Newark's first civilian police review board. Now, I admit, some council people are being polite and clapping. I see Ross Brock over there. He's been calling for this for 10, 15 years. Same with Ron Rice. I'm happy that my administration is catching up with some of these foresight and forward-thinking council people. It's time. It's time. It's my vision that we can create a citizen-led police oversight panel that will help us to make Newark now the model in the country for police community trust and respect. Make it a model for cooperation. Make it a model for partnering with the community, and ultimately, with the help of the community, we will become a model in America for public safety. At this point, I want to thank a few people, and two of them are extraordinary, and I want them to stand up. You all don't know how lucky we are to have first African-American female police director of this department, police chief of this department. Would Sheila Coley please stand up and so I can say thank you. And I have to say, this is one of the funnest people I deal with on a daily basis. He is about business, but he keeps my feet on the ground. He is a workhorse. He is like a fullback on the Giants, putting his head down and plowing ahead, doing an extraordinary job, and he deserves a lot of praise and applause from the people of the city of Newark and all those who do business here. Our police director, would you please stand up, Mr. DeMaio. But I also want to pause here too, because what I see that Sammy and Sheila have done so well is to understand that we can't do this alone. Just last month, after some complaints when people were snatching cell phones on our college campuses, they held a summit meeting with law enforcement from every college and university in the region, further deepening our partnerships. And again, that spike has now gone down. But not just that, not just NJ Transit and others, they partner with people on the federal level, our federal agencies. I need to thank them today, from FBI to the marshals, to so many people on the federal level are in our city partnering. And the state as well, I thank the governor for our partnership with the state police who are doing operations in our city. But also right now, probably the most intimate partnership we have in fighting crime is with our county leaders. And I just want to single out three of them that I'm together with often, most recently on a massive gun buyback program. And the first person I want to thank is the most popular politician in all of Essex County, our sheriff, Armando Fontoura. And the next guy, who is a bad brother, who has been a friend of mine, I cannot tell you, he's really one of the unsung heroes who gets into the weeds with Sammy. Often I catch them doing it at midnight with drinks in their hands, but gets in the weeds with Sammy on fighting the crime, and he personally has come up with some of the strategies we're using because of his experience in the Newark Police Department as one of our great leaders from our city. This is the Chief of Detectives, County Detectives. It is Anthony Ambrose. Anthony, please stand up. And finally, as tough as Sammy DeMeo looks, this person is far tougher and is really one of our great partners who is heroically helping us with strategies and hard work, determination. She's making sure that our streets are safe every single day. It's our County Prosecutor, Carolyn Murray. Would you please stand up, Carolyn? There you are. And so this is what happens when you reduce problems in city government, when you address issues of corruption, and then when you create a safer climate. You end up creating a ground that is fertile for economic growth. I want to say thanks to everybody in our state delegation. These are folks that have been joining with me to make sure that we are creating economic development. And I can't tell you how many times we have to talk. People like Grace Spencer, Senator Ruiz, Assemblyman Caputo, Assemblyman Giblin, Assemblyman Albert Coutinho. This legislative team is doing incredible things, together with the governor's team, who's doing also incredible things in our city. Business leaders, community development corporations, community leaders, and so many others working together is going to make the hallmark of my years as mayor unequivocally. The hallmark of our success will be seen most visibly and physically in the economic growth of our city. We have had more than $1 billion worth of projects underway in 2011 and 12. Think about this, $1 billion. I still remember on this stage, and I want to point him out right now, as Stephen Pryor declared 2011 our groundbreaking year in Newark, as we ushered in $1 billion for 2011 and 12. More than half of those projects, more than half of that investment was in the neighborhoods. And we invested in projects all over Newark. Now, this represents the biggest period of economic development in more than a generation. In fact, which I think is one of the most important statistics of the night, based on reported data for the fourth quarter of 2012, Newark, New Jersey, Newark is currently the hottest market for construction in the entire state. More than 30%, listen to this now, more than 30% of all commercial and multifamily development in the entire state is happening here in Newark, New Jersey. Let me say that again. Let me say that again. Because we are returning to our past glory, that this city is the economic engine for our state, that this city is producing incredible gains. More than 30% of the commercial and multifamily gains, more than 30% of the commercial and multifamily construction is underway in the entire state is happening here in Newark. We are becoming the economic engine of our state. We are leading the growth. We are booming now. But now, the even better news. That was what we announced for 2011 and 2012. I'm telling you now that the transformation is just beginning. Now Newark is going to top that $1 billion from 2011 and 2012. Because 2013 and 2014, for these years, Newark has over $1.5 billion of additional projects moving forward in the pipeline. Last year, I stood here and announced that Panasonic Corporation of North America was moving its headquarters to Newark and building the city's first new office tower in 20 years. We worked hard to have Panasonic choose Newark. I tell you, I wooed with all the woo I had to get Panasonic to choose Newark. And amidst the competition that was literally from coast to coast, they chose to put their headquarters, their North American headquarters, here in Newark, New Jersey. And we knew at that point, when Joe Taylor made the decision to put Panasonic's flag down here, we knew that it would be a catalyst for even greater growth. Well, now I am happy to announce that our new office tower construction is multiplying throughout our city. Let me give you some important announcements tonight. BioTrial, a French pharmaceutical company, is building their new North American headquarters. Where? Here in Newark, New Jersey. It's a massive office tower that they're going to be completing in the Central Ward, Darren Sharif, in the University Heights area. BioTrial, not only with all the construction jobs created, they're going to bring 100 permanent jobs to our city. And it will further to expand the fact that Newark, New Jersey, in our state, we are the center for education, research, innovation, and business. And also, I'm proud to announce another office tower. This one is being built by our long-term friend and partner, Fidelco. And it's being built for Cablevision, just across the street from the Broad Street station, expanding our downtown construction boom to the northern end of Broad Street. And then there is number 3 office building. And this one is, to channel my Sanford and Son, this is the big one. Across from Military Park, on Broad Street, our prodigious, persevering, and powerful city partner, Prudential, is building a new $450 million office tower that will transform this section of Broad Street as yet again this global corporation affirms its more than century-long commitment and connection to Newark, New Jersey. Thank you, Prudential. Let the ready, please. Please bring back my gratitude. And with all these towers in our downtown, I don't want to forget that I'm very happy, as promised, this year we're going to break ground on a new residential tower on Rector Street from our incredible partners of Borai Development and Shaquille O'Neal. These are the same folks that brought movie theater back to Newark, New Jersey, and a state-of-the-art 12-plex, which I will be in opening night for the next Star Trek movie. Somebody booed Star Trek? We're going to begin construction this year, though, with Borai Development, finally, of Newark's first new residential office tower in decades. Further south on Broad Street, we recently opened, as you all know, and as I already mentioned with Brother Tucker here right now, that we have opened the Marriott, Newark's first new downtown hotel in more than 40 years. I want to thank all that were involved in that project because more than 30% of the construction work on that Marriott was performed by Newark residents, and 60% of the permanent workforce was referred through the city's First Source program at the transformed Newark One Stop. But this year, a second downtown hotel will open, the Indigo, at the historic 810 Broad Street location. You see, ladies and gentlemen, there is a massive transformation happening, and I am relentless. I'm unapologetic in my pursuit for development in this city. And with 481 days left in my term as mayor and the demand for jobs in this city among the top needs of our residents, I will not stop. I will not yield. I will crisscross this land, going from state to state, door to door, CEO to CEO, investor to investor, philanthropist to philanthropist, making the argument to bring new capital, new companies, new properties, and new opportunities, and especially new jobs to the city of Newark. By this time next year, mark my word, we will have new companies, new investments, new businesses, and new jobs to announce, because nothing will stop me and nothing will stop Newark, because nothing can stop our progress in creating economic opportunity for our residents. We are booming, we are surging. Newark's boom is New Jersey's boom. We're taking less state aid, we're giving back more tax money to Trenton. We're lifting all around the state higher as we flex our economic muscles again. Again, make no mistake, Newark, New Jersey has turned a corner, and we are on a transformative new path of development. Momentum is growing, and hope is now flourishing where doubt once dwelled. And understand that my attention is not just on the big development projects in our downtown, port, and university areas. I want the mark of Newark's resurgence to be also seen in our small businesses, in our local entrepreneurs, in a new class of Newark businesswomen and businessmen. Remember when I came into office in 2006? The city had no economic development corporation to provide assistance to local businesses. The one before us collapsed in scandal. So we created, along with the council, the Brick City Development Corporation. And the numbers now speak for themselves when it comes to small businesses. BCDC has lent out over $14.6 million to Newark small businesses through a community loan program we created. And since 2011, BCDC has assisted over 500 aspiring entrepreneurs by providing technical assistance and support. And this is how it should be. I, along with our great team, will attract new businesses and woo new companies. No one can do the woo that I do. It's like Bruce Lee Kung Fu. But I will be unyielding in my commitment to the development, support, and empowerment of a new generation of homegrown businesses so that the future Prudentials and Panasonics, businesses now only living in the imagination of our young people, will one day launch here and succeed here and will always be able to trace their roots to the rich soil of this supportive city. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of Newark, New Jersey is strong and roaring forth. We are meeting and surmounting age-old challenges and gaining new and unprecedented momentum. Almost 7 years in on this administration, 481 days left, but we will not just count the days, we will make every single day count. That is what you deserve. You should settle for nothing less from the people you elect, now and ever. After all, this is your government. My administration has fought to bring it closer to you, to make it more responsive to you and accountable to you. And so this night where we feel pride, let us also know that there are still many battles to fight. There is still difficult and hard work to do. And yes, as they say, there is much more mountain to climb. We've got great momentum, but I tell you, because of Newark, on a very personal level, because of Newark, because of all of you, my metaphor of hope has changed. That's been my personal transformation. You see, when I began in 2006, walking in and seeing all of the challenges, all of the problems, all of the difficulties, the budget nightmare, I used to tell my staff that I was a prisoner of hope. I was a prisoner of hope. Well, now, after 7 years as mayor, after seeing the courage and the sacrifice and the heart, and yes, the love of our people, after seeing what we have done together, I tell you that I am no longer a prisoner of hope. I am now hope unhinged. And so I end by paraphrasing the words of the great poet Henley, who's speaking of the resiliency and the strength of hope, wild and abundant, even in the most challenging circumstances. It's a poem that Nelson Mandela locked in an apartheid prison. It was hope that liberated him. They put his body behind bars, but they could not chain his spirit. He was hope unhinged. It said that every day he turned to this poem, and I paraphrase it now. It's in the fell clutch of circumstance. We have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, our heads were bloodied but not bowed. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. We, Newark, are the masters of our fate. We are the captains of our soul. Ladies and gentlemen, it continues to be the greatest honor of my life to captain this great ship through the waters, though the waters are still rough beneath us, and we must grapple with the challenges at hand. Great winds now fill our sails with hope, and the heavens above smile down upon us, portending of bright days ahead for our city. Let our love prevail. Let our hope run unhinged. Let us march forward into the brighter days that beckon us, that call us, that hold the great destiny that reflects our glorious past. This is Newark. May God bless you. May God bless this city. May God bless America. Good night.
Well, you heard the proof. Newark is on the move. Now, if you love Newark, would you please put your hands together for this great city? At this time, before we have our benediction, just some quick acknowledgments. If you could please acknowledge our fire chief and our fire personnel who are in attendance here. If you all please raise your hands. And please recognize our additional police personnel who are here with us, our officers. One more quick acknowledgement. There is a gem in this city that deserves national attention. It is our Newark Museum. Would you please acknowledge Mary Sue Sweeney Price, our museum director? I know she's out there somewhere. So I really want to thank all of the Newarkers who are here this evening. All of those people, give yourselves a hand, Newarkers. All right. And please, again, for all of our department directors who have toiled to make it a success in terms of all of our plans coming into fruition, thank you, directors. All of those who are watching us online, who are watching us on Channel 78, thank you so much, because your viewing is support in and of itself. And at this time, I would bring up W. Dean Sharif, Iman Masjid Warith ad-Din, Irvington, New Jersey, for our benediction.
Let's give Mayor Cory Booker and the Municipal Council and all of the administration another round of applause for the great work that they're doing. Wonderful work. To the Honorable Mayor Cory Booker, to the Honorable Municipal Council, to the religious leaders that are here this evening and all of the government officials that are appointed and elected, as well as to you, the honorable citizens of this great city of Newark, it is a pleasure for me to be here this evening. And I'd like to say to you, it is an honor for me to be asked to give this supplication. Before we give the final supplication for our beloved city, I would like to just acknowledge that we are in this month, the month of the history of women. I'd like to acknowledge that. It is important for us to acknowledge that it is Women's History Month. We will not go very far unless we reverence and give regard to the wombs that have given us birth. And we have to reverence that and make sure that all of the family ties, as the mayor said, we keep the family ties close and we keep them strong. So we'd like to ask you this evening to join us in the supplication for our beloved city, the city of Newark, and we pray. With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful Redeemer, our Creator, Cherisher, Sustainer, and Evolver, on this day on which we witness the state of our beloved city of Newark, we come before you faithfully and sincerely, supplicating your mercy, your guidance, and your grace. With our heads and our eyes bowed toward the earth in humility, our hearts and our hands lifted toward the heavens in hope, we pray that you will grant us what is good, beautiful, and excellent in this world and make this city a city of peace. We pray that you will guide us to make ourselves eligible to earn what you have promised as good, beautiful, and excellent in the more enduring life of the future, as we transition to become inhabitants of a city of your paradise. Make the beginning of our lives innocent, the middle of our lives honorable, and the end of our lives praiseworthy. Preserve us all that is to obey in rendering excellent service to humanity. We faithfully and consistently call upon you to bless us and receive the fulfillment of your promise. Cover and pardon our errors and raise us from the stumbling of our sins and our transgressions. Teach us to trust the power of repentance and strengthen us to stand and work in the light of guidance, illuminating the straight path that always leads to your forgiveness, mercy, and your grace. We witness that you are one, the glorified, the Most High, the Almighty, and the majestic Creator, sustainer, cherisher, and evolver of all the systems of knowledge, the Lord of all the worlds. Enliven our lives with the worship of you and enrich our lives with the enlightenment to cultivate a thriving and flourishing community. And let us all say, amen.
We adjourn. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy.